Morning, everyone. Cheers. So, before I sit, I would like to thank, first of all, for the all organizers and having us for this discussion. And I'm trying to have very informal chat because, yesterday we had very heavy discussions like laws, policies, and everything. So I don't want to make it so hard to digest the discussion. So since we all know about media and we love media sometimes, so I'm just going to have very casual discussions with two crazy friends, like in one hand, the store of overacting, in the other hand, the store of overreacting. So, so lovely. So first, I'm just going to ask them to tell us a little bit about themselves other than the description, because I think get to know people more close would be more interesting. So I'll pass the mic to you first.
So, Bhumi, am I the overacting or the overreacting?
Whichever title you like to carry.
Okay. So my informal introduction, according to Ms. Bhumi here, is that I am the shop of drama, which is appropriate as the panelist here because we're going to be talking about queer representation in media, drama, theater, art, music, and performances. Informally, my introduction is that I also consider myself post-gay, very fluid. What I mean by post-gay is that LGBTQ plus and whatever else and whatever other alphabets can be added, I'm post all of that and I'm fluid. My pronouns are he, she, her, they, them, whatever you want to be, whatever you want to call me. We're all about going beyond binaries, going beyond structures. We're all about challenging all boundaries of mind, thought, sexuality, body, of all kinds. And our conversation with the media is going to be about how we look at media representing our psychologies and our orientations, and whether or not there are uplifting interpretations that we can find in the media, dignified interpretations, or things that are problematic, and why they may be so.
Thank you. It's your turn. Tell us about something very brief about yourself.
Okay, I'm Rafe. I consider myself androgynous. I feel like gender is a construct, and sometimes when you feel that the world is against you, and sometimes you are able to experiment yourself, but then there are delimitations to expressing yourself. Sometimes it just becomes a very big confusion. And so you have to kind of let gender, whether femininity or masculinity within you, take the back seat. And for me, just to think about what do you want to do as an artist or in your career or professionally. So, I find peace in having a more genderless identity. I did my bachelor's from Lahore School of Economics in Business and Media Studies. One of the issues that I faced in my life was the discrimination when I went to art school. Okay, in business school there was not much discrimination, but in art school things went really weird. And since I love art, and in art school they police you, and then if you're queer, it became very difficult for me. So, I wasn't able to do my master's. That was one of the downsides, I think. But then I've been doing video production for many years for different types of startup businesses, corporations, and stuff. And then I started working on my album. Whiskey Shisky was released, my music video, a couple of years ago. And then I was working with a multinational, worked in the media, different industries, and then finally I'm working on 2 albums, one in English and one in Urdu. The English album is called Inhibitions. It's about, facing your fears. And the other one is called Baghi, the Urdu album, which means the rebel. Right. So that's what I'm working on these days.
So I'm going to put a very common question for both of you. So it's like born with pride. That's the theme of this conference. So, like, what pride means to you? What is pride according to you?
Should I go first?
Yeah.
Okay, what is pride to me? See, I think fundamentally pride to me is about beauty and dignity. And I think the reason I say beauty is because really the difference between just living day to day and thriving, the gap is how beautiful you can make your life, right? So one is that I'm working day to day and I'm making ends meet and I'm trying to just get by the day. And then the other aspect is, oh my God, I'm loving this life. I'm having a great time with friends. I'm having a great time being who I am. And I'm creating these beautiful memories and experiences. And I think that for me, when you're able to achieve that, when you're able to do that authentically, when you're able to do that without shame, without guilt, without repression, without oppression, without any kind of discrimination or any kind of judgment, that's when I think you achieve pride, that's when you achieve beauty, and I think that is what I think we should all try to celebrate, right? That be who you want to be, achieve that beautiful life for yourself, and I think everybody deserves to do that. We have one life on this planet, at least, that we remember.
So we don't have much time.
And we don't have much time, so just make it as fabulous as you can, and being queer is all about being fabulous, so that's what pride means to me.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll just keep this one short, but I would have some criticisms. Okay. So I believe that, pride is important for everybody, because even sometimes straight people have their ego hurt. Okay. So, when I think about pride, I think about pride for the whole human race. I want an inclusive society. I want to respect straight people as much as we are respected, and I want everybody to be raised to the same pedestal. And so, pride for me is for the whole human race. So when we are talking about LGBTQ pride, I will discuss this later as well. Sometimes I feel like there is an overcompensation that is happening. It is necessary, but in the next 10 years, maybe we would want a world where everybody is equal, and so that overcompensation doesn't have to happen.
No, actually, Rafe, I actually disagree, because I think that there is no such thing as a world where everybody is equal. I think there is a world where everybody is respected for their differences and celebrated for their differences. And therefore, the overcompensation that I think what you think is happening today is because historically there hasn't been any celebration of our lives.
Exactly.
So it's about, okay, let's recognize that there are so many different colors, there is so many different plants, there are so many different animals, there are so many different trees, there are so many different ways of nature being different. But why is, when it comes to man and woman and human beings, it's only one kind of man, one kind of woman, and it's only straight, and it's only this binary, right? And I think therefore what you're seeing as overcompensation is just, hey, let's recognize there is so much more fabulous fun, diversity, and color, and beauty.
Exactly.
And therefore, let's be proud of that.
Yes.
Yeah, and also I personally believe, like, am I audible? Okay. So the personally, what I believe, I mean, when my pride started, when I realized who I am, because recognizing yourself, identifying yourself, and finding out who you are will leads you to understand what is your capacity, what is your talents, and that will decide your journey in which path that you should walk. So like when you know your talents, your capacity and your path, eventually it will add values into your life. So that will, sort of award you with a jewelry called pride, right? So I think that's personally pride means to you. So yeah, and like we all are coming from different countries and we all have different journeys. And what is your significant turning point in your life which made you who you are today?
Oh, well, I'm sure there are many significant turning points that made me who I am today, but
Mention one. We have one now.
but I think, um, well, I think when I was living in the US, I was dating my partner at that time. And I think my journey into becoming a political activist and especially understanding that the political is the personal happened when I was separated from my partner of 5 years in the US because of his undocumented status as an immigrant in the United States and my inability to extend my stay and my visa in the US as well. So it was this impersonal bureaucrat who probably was in Washington, D.C., who issued out a letter that said, okay, this is the last day for you to live in this country and now you have to leave. And that meant that for 5 years, the relationship and the love and the experiences and the joint memories that were created had to be cut and torn apart. And then the two of us had to just be separated across, across continents. And then that's when I realized, I was like, damn, the political is so personal. That immigration law means something to me. That LGBTQ rights, the fact that I'm not married, has an impact on my life, and the fact that countries don't recognize same-sex love and marriages has an impact on my life, and therefore we can't just separate politics as something that politicians do. We have to understand that we live the political in our daily lives.
Thank you. And I'll direct a different question to you. Like, we are coming from very cultural and very religious related countries, right? So being in the media is really difficult thing. It's like, you know, in Asian countries, it's like sort of a competition. And its opportunities are really rare. And being a queer person and being in media, how is that experience? How media treats you? Like, what kind of the challenge that you have faced when you first entered to the media industry, this entertaining industry?
Okay, so there are two sides of it. One side is the video production side, and the other side is the performance artist, the singer, the songwriter. Okay, so when it comes to video production, I'm usually supposed to be behind the camera. Okay, directing videos for fashion, music videos, different things. So, you know, that is a very safe environment for me. When I'm directing or editing a video, I would usually have a team. Okay, so, you know, in the company somebody would acquire, so I'm working in a network, and it felt safe. And it, you know, for like many years I was working, so I never felt threatened, because, you know, the people that have to work, you know, we know them through years, and all the B2B businesses, all those, you know, small businesses coming together to do these, you know, medium scale, small scale, larger scale projects. That was not an issue. But the performance artist, that is another story. That did not go as planned. You know, so for Whiskey Chisky, I thought of like making a very, you know, grand music video with a social message, with different queer people. And then, you know, I pitch it to the biggest TV channel, and they say that due to, you know, this video, risk of censorship, we're not going to play it. And so, you know, a lot of my, you know, let's say that I was discouraged, and I felt bad about it, because I had, you know, for many years, you know, given a lot of time to and thought to, you know, starting a career. So the performance artist, the person in front of the camera, well, that is another story, and that is more challenging.
Why you think like there's a difference when it's come to production, when you have some sort of power to control, you know, certain situations, and when you don't have, you know, that power? Why you think, like, what happened? Why you think that there's a difference?
Okay, I will say that. Okay, it's not the kind of answer you'd expect, but I'll just be honest. I feel like when I'm behind the camera, I can read people, I can understand how to direct them, even if there is a straight person coming in and it's a TV commercial for XYZ product, I would know how a person has to act, right? So, being queer, being androgynous, understanding how men think, how women think, and even, being a part of the community, the trans community, I know how a lot of genders think and behave. So that actually helps me to tell all the actors, okay, this is what you have to do, this is what you have to do, this is what you have to do, and it just becomes much easier. And it's just documentation. You're working for people, there are the campaigns and whatever it is that you have to fulfill. So I'm very encouraged. I'm always encouraged, and my talent is appreciated. But let's say that an individual who wants to express a queer individuality in front of the screen, okay, when I'm behind the screen working for other people and pushing the same narratives that they have to push, that is not going to be there is not going to be any detriment, right? But then when an individual identity comes in and just wants to create a soft image of social messages and stuff like that, that is when the problem is going to come in, where the bigger establishment or the authority or the media or the TV channels, they're not going to be very willing, because there is a fear of, let's say, the Pakistani society being just overexposed too quickly to these things. And I think that personally, queer people are very, very supported. Like in this movement, Jannat and Aisha and everybody have been going to the media. And the media persons don't cut off when there's a Mulana, there's a religious figure and a trans. They don't cut off the trans. They let them speak. So, but let's just say that, trans are being accepted, and a person who is, let's say, queer, androgynous, male, there is a long way to go.
See, I just want to pick up on what Rafa is saying, right?
Yeah.
So there are different journeys in, say, Pakistan, for example, or say India, which is also different in a certain way, that the trans conversation is perhaps included more in the sense of, again, the binary of male and female, where a trans is considered to be more feminine rather than actually the full authentic transitional male to female, in the sense that homosexuality or male to male doesn't really get that kind of acceptance and narrative as much as, say, perhaps a trans conversation would. And then in certain other cultures, for example, in like the Western societies, they are more comfortable with the homosexual narrative, the male to male and the female to female, but not the trans narrative, right? So they are struggling with trans bathrooms and which should be a third gender bathroom, and should they compete in certain sports and this and that. And the Western societies are unable to grapple with trans narratives, both in media and in society, whereas our societies are able to kind of integrate trans narrative much more easily than, say, homosexual narratives.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, like, I host a show. So why that channel, offered that a position for me, because like the interviews that, we are talking about trans issues, it's becoming trending. So there are like few interviews which I have done. It's still trending, like no other any interviews beated that amount of views. So it's like also the way that they're quoting it, very sympathetically, like we need support, we need this. What I personally believe, media is not a really sensitive place. Whatever they can market and, get views and get their, things sold, the rates. So they will publish anything. They will publish anything. I mean, like, as an example, so in Sri Lanka, there are some media companies who have same channels in 3 different languages, in Sinhalese, in English, and in Tamil. So it's really funny that they will publish the same news in 3 different type contents. Like in English media, they are so open they're so supportive. Like they like covering the entire Pride month. I was like almost 3 years featuring in their magazines, right? But in the Sinhala, in the local language news channel, like thrashing LGBTIQ community. It's like they continuously saying this is kind of a mental illness and this is like sort of a cultural destroying concept, right? So it's like really fascinating. And automatically media have created sort of a mentality that this is a Western, concept, and this is accepted by English speaking people and upper class people, but this is not something suitable to other classes or whatever they think. But when it's come to trans issues, it's really dramatic. I'm telling you, it's really dramatic. That's why they offered me a show, because that they can market it, right? So with that comment, like I would like to turn to you again. Like, have you ever come across in a media platform to share the issues which facing by LGBTIQ community, or like which happened to share your story, and what was the reaction?
Oh yeah, see, as I said, right? As you said, actually, that the media is very, very supportive, especially English media in our South Asian communities. They're very supportive of the LGBT agenda and rights and all of that. So before Section 377 was decriminalized in India, there were many, many debates, many TV shows that I was part of, many documentaries that I participated in. Me and my partner of the time, we showcased relationships in the way in which it could be among queer people. So there was a lot of positive media support. But as you said, it's the English media, right? So then there is the other regional media or the regional languages media that looks at it as looks at queer people as very queer. And I mean that in a very, in the negative connotation of the word queer. Like such a strange creature, such strange people living such strange lives, right? Aliens, right? So there's usually that look of amusement that they have, regional media typically. And I think a lot of it is as what you said, that they say that the English narrative is inherited from the West, whereas the indigenous narrative or the regional narrative is actually rooted in our cultures. But actually, Rafe and I mean, we are coming from this subcontinent that is rich with narratives of queer that predate any colonial influence. Right? I mean, we come from cultures that talked about, the third gender, that talked about sexual orientation and gender identity. We have 75 different words for sexual identity and psychosexual identity in Indian languages, or in the subcontinental languages. And so it's actually trying to, tell the media and society in general that there is a history that we have forgotten of talking about our stories. And see, like, for example, Rafe is one of the few people who is involved in creating art. He's involved in creating media. Typically what happens is it's the straight community that creates media and art or news about us, right? So it is their gaze about us. It's like, sometimes it is patronizing, sometimes it is, oh my God, so poor, they are the downtrodden, the oppressed. And so sometimes it is ridicule, sometimes it is, attacking and threatening. It's very few of us who are able to actually get into the creative process, the production process, and build the narrative that we know is real, rather than having an external, strange gaze upon us and their narrative about us.
So, my next question is to you. So, like, we all are very familiar and associating with like a lot of YouTube channels. But let me ask you about like mainstream media channels. Like, what kind of a role that they play when it's come to LGBTIQ topic? Are they really supportive? Are they really inclusive? Are they like, like just using the community opportunistically? What do you think about it? Bit like, explain it.
Okay, I would like to answer this question. But before we answer this question, I would like to say one more thing.
Sure, please.
Okay, so I feel like, okay, can you first ask the question, then I'll come again. Can you ask the question again?
Okay, I want to know like what kind of a role that your mainstream media Like in every country, there are like, you know, TV
Yeah, yeah,
channels,
yeah, yeah,
main
yeah.
TV channels.
Yeah.
So like, what kind of a contribution and support that, or like, what kind of a role that they play
Okay,
when it's come to
okay, okay, okay.
LGBTIQ
So
narrative?
this is again gonna be a, like, I'll try. So the thing is that in Pakistan, like I'm actually scared talking about this, but what I fear the most through my personal experience and just for the whole trans community is censorship. Okay, so there can be situations in Pakistan or the subcontinent where there can be complete media blackouts. Okay, nobody talks about it. That can be very toxic and very dangerous. Okay, so at this point, you know, there's a whole movement by Jamaat Islami, and they have just put the whole debate in everybody's home. Okay, condemning certain aspects of the LGBTQ, saying that okay, trans people are naturally like intersex people. They're okay, but like the other people, they're doing it because of their own choice and their own, you know, yeah, yeah, yeah. They just want to have fun. Let's just say, okay, different reasons, right? So what I fear the most is censorship. Like for example, if there is complete censorship and then they start changing laws, there is complete censorship and the police brutality happens. There's this complete censorship and something else happens, right? That is what I fear. So in Pakistan's case, one thing that I'm very, very happy about is that, you know, in different TV channels, even when Jannat or Mehrab, one of the activists, when they come, you know, the news anchors are sensitized enough to let both of the parties speak and let the people decide. Okay, and yes, maybe the Jamaat Islam people and all of those people, they might win. Right now, they might win. But these are the people who are differentiating the LGBT. Okay, L is this, B is this. You know, these are the people who are doing our homework. They are sensitizing people at least to understand that, okay, these are different type of genders. Okay, a person who's androgynous like me, sometimes even today, people come and ask me, okay, what do you think like? What do you feel like? We don't understand. You seem masculine, you seem very feminine. How do you think? You know, people don't understand. But if in each and every household, even if they're condemning, but in the next 20 years, people will actually understand LGBTQ, the words, they are being spoken by these religious people. So they are putting the narrative into people's mind and they're doing our homework. So I take this in a positive light because in the next 20 years, at least somebody has done the groundwork. Do you agree, Jannat? Do you agree? Yeah.
In some points. Right. So, like in as in sub question, like in my country, in Sri Lanka, we tried few times to make ethical guidelines to media and sensitize them. And we were asking them to come and have a meeting. Let's discuss about this media ethics and all, right, related to LGBTIQ issues, which never worked. So they never turned up. So what is your country situation? Have you ever tried to have that kind of a media ethical guidelines developing?
So yes, so there's one aspect of it. One is that whenever we encounter insensitive media narrative or media portrayals, either in the news or in movies or in fiction, there are certain community groups that we have, certain civil organizations that we have, such as the Humsafar Trust, and there are many other, even just Facebook groups and online communities. We agitate and we create a buzz around the fact that this is not okay, this should be taken down, this is an insensitive portrayal, or this journalist, or this media person, or this anchor was completely out of line in doing this representation. So we do a lot of naming and shaming. I mean, so we don't have laws, right? So we do not want to take resort to banning and censoring, because that is exactly what we are fighting against. We are fighting against censorship. So what we do is a lot of social shaming, social ostracism. But having said that, the other aspect, Rafi, to come to your point about censorship in media, is that maybe there are ways in which we can talk about our stories without just being explicit about it being LGBT stories, right? And there is so many ways in which we can talk about love, we can talk about acceptance, we can talk about human dignity, looking at stories from our own cultures, our past, our histories, our religions, our cultures and ethnicities, and we will be able to find stories and ways in which to talk about love, acceptance, dignity, and relationships in so many ways without actually it being explicitly called out as LGBTQ. And I think that's the journey that a lot of us in India did.
But like, do we really get opportunities to reach out to media, like to have that kind of discussions and speeches?
No, I mean, what I mean is not just reaching out to media and asking them to do it, but as art creators like Rafe, for example, or anyone else in the audience or anyone listening, people creating art, I think there are ways in which we can circumvent censorship, and I think that's the story in India, where we try to create certain small narratives under the surface about love and about sexuality without it being explicit. And then finally the momentum built up. And the momentum built up, and the pride parades happened, and the LGBTQ conversation started coming out in the media, and then finally it reached the courts, and then finally it got read down. So I think that journey was a long one, but that's how it went.
Yes, the journey is a long one, right? So I wanted to just mention, like, there's this other singer, La Mimi, who's also androgynous. She is biologically a female and androgynous. And, she once said to some international radio in an interview, she said, okay, I am queer and I'm putting out my music. And I'm not really famous because I know that the media is not going to support me. So is this a good thing that I'm not famous? Because, not being famous is actually keeping me alive. So, is it good not to grow? Right? So just as you said, it's going to be a long movement. So, art producers, people who want to make films or music or TV shows or whatever, if they're always going to be on YouTube and not going to be on mainstream, how long can they support it? How long can an individual support? Obviously, there has to be some movement, some sort of a movement where, there is some caveat that is created, there's some space that is created within the media. For example, there was this late night show with Begum Nawaz Ali, where, where she became very famous, a household name. She was queer, and then she would, talk about different things. She would have straight actors, politicians, even religious figures come in, and as a drag person, she would interview them, and she was very intelligent. And so yes, mainstream. She was mainstream, right? But then for a lot of other people who might have the same caliber or relatively some nice kind of expression, for how long are they not going to be represented? Because when they're caricatures, they're famous. They're the #1 TV show, like Kurdusi Saab Ki Beva, a caricatured male who wants to be a female now because his mother wants him to marry, is having a fake expression of masculinity in a very feminine way, and so it's an extreme caricature, and the show is being loved. But for how long? As you said, and I would like to know a little bit about, like, do you think that it's a gradual process?
Yeah, see, I definitely think that is the gradual or the evolutionary process. I mean, I don't know how you can short circuit and speed up that, because media stories and narratives come from the culture that it is within, situated within. And so long as the culture doesn't have those stories percolating, you will not get those stories coming out in the media, right? So for example, from caricature, then it can go to becoming the focus, sole focus. Like as I think Rohan said in his introduction, that we are just gay, or we are just lesbian. I mean, here is a character, all they are is a lesbian, all they are is a gay. I mean, no, but there is, perhaps we are a doctor who happens to be gay. Perhaps we are a construction worker who happens to be lesbian. That next level storytelling is not here yet, and it will come perhaps later. So from the caricature to then just becoming only the identity to then finally the identity becoming part of a whole person, that journey, it takes time. And I think a lot of it has to do with we ourselves as queer people and queer allies going into the media, if at all that's our space, into the arts, and actually making those stories happen, or actually talking and communicating about those stories.
Okay, I would like to mention one of my personal experiences, and I think
Please.
this would actually help, this journey from caricature to, actual representation. I was like bullied a lot when I was a teen because I was a very feminine child, right? And then things just continued, and there was a lot of mental issues. And a few years ago, like almost 5 years ago, I had a big breakdown, and I didn't understand what I was feeling anymore. I went to a psychologist and I said, "What am I feeling? It's so dangerous that I have lost track of myself. I might want to kill myself, but I don't. What is happening, right?" I had just completely lost touch. And so a professional mental health practitioner for 2 years, did the DSM diagnosis and then started giving me cognitive behavioral therapy. What that did was that helped me do the self-talk. And once I could do the self-talk, then I could write the particular song or anything but I couldn't make sense of anything. All of that harassment and violence doesn't help you to pick up a pen and start writing out, because you can't make sense of something which is so violent for years and years that queer people face. It's not like physically violent, but mentally. That volatility, it does not help you to condense the information. So I think that for all queer people, if we could take mental health as extremely important, at least after a very difficult encounter, we can actually have a self-talk. For example, I had cognitive behavioral therapy. Some other trans person might have some other psychological intervention, or maybe just teach them some psychological. I remember that she used to like give me pointers, like these are the 10 things you're gonna think about, and you're gonna keep it in your life as your weapons to be strong, right? And these are just little mental health exercises, right? So I think that just for queer people to actually condense their own narrative, it is going to take a little bit of mental health. And so mental health should be one of the more important aspects. And for mental health, I think it also binds the whole LGBTQ people together. Why? Because if a person is scared, well, everyone in the community, whether the LGBTQ has felt scared or happy, or anybody could have, PTSD, or anybody could have a certain kind of symptom. Some can be schizophrenic, some can develop OCD. So we can also, through mental health, bind people together when different identities come in and they have specific mental health issues. We can understand that our psychological makeup is the basis that also makes us human. And so, to integrate us with actual society, when we see a straight person, we're also going to take care of their mental health. So ultimately, I think that mental health is something that is going to amalgamate us better into the general society and form our own narrative better, and even understand and address the narratives of the straight people and the issues that they have.
So I'm coming to my final question for both of you. So let's say that you get an opportunity to change a one thing in media platforms. Let's say like a one specific thing. You get one opportunity, right? Since we are very coming from very discriminated background, we get less opportunities. So like one opportunity to change in media platforms, in media industry. So what it would be?
Um, okay. Okay, okay. So
Just one thing.
I cannot point out one thing.
This is the really important one. Let's make it
Can
very
you
tough.
can you go first?
Okay.
See, I mean, for me, I think one of the most important things is the plot of always having one protagonist and another, a binary, male or female, a hero or a heroine, or even if it's a gay love story, then it's a hero and a hero. If it's a female gay love story, it's a woman and a woman. But there's this one lovely movie that I happened to mention last night as well to somebody. There's this movie called A Home at the End of the World, and I think it's one of my top favorite movies. And that movie kind of shows how love, relationships, and storytelling does not need to center around one or two protagonists, but it can be about many different people and how they can all live together and share love together. Was it you that I was telling you about? Okay, I was telling her last night about this. So I want storytelling to be more diverse than just what it is today, about just one hero, one heroine, one hero, one hero, and just the whole binary that everything kind of revolves around. Because our lives have multiplicities of selves and friends and relationships. So we don't live in hero-heroine lifestyles.
Okay. All right. I would want to, if I would want to change one thing, I would want there to be a couple of dramas or songs, like the way I write, or films that have genderless expression and genderless characters. Let's look at the story. Let's not just always think about, okay, what do they do? How do they, you know, get on with it, you know? And let's just have expression in a pure way. Like, for example, I wrote a song where I said, was I in the arms of a demon or the hands of a broken child? So when I say the arms of a demon, I'm not saying it's a male demon or a female demon, or a child is not a male or a female. So, I express a human feeling, but then I do not gender myself or the other person or the feeling. So have a non-gender language. Yes, 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 yes. Enter it. And it's going to take a little bit of training ourselves. Like I used to sometimes write as a female or something. I used to write as a female or a male in some songs. And I had to do this whole training where even if I'm writing an Urdu song or an English song, I would now try to not make it gendered. One reason for being non-gendered is also inclusivity. Okay, sometimes androgynous people or trans people, or there's some types of people who do not know if they're male or female, like they're non-binary. Okay, so if there is a song about a girl or a guy, they might not feel that they're fitting into the narrative. I felt very exclusive when a certain English song would be like, there was a boy and there was a girl. Okay, but where was I? Where was I in the narrative? And so, in the same way, like in a film where a couple is getting married, okay, great, shadi, marriage, let's celebrate, but just a boy or a girl, okay. So where do I fit in? Yes, we celebrate and we dance and everything, but it just something made me sad. And I just want that around the world, we need a non-gendered expression. We need to desexualize. We need to desexualize so that people can stop getting into other people's way. So I think that
That's the you want to change.
yeah. Like at one extreme, we we are about LGBTQ and we want everybody to understand what the terms mean so that we can create the way and do everything properly. Okay, but there has to be another school of thought which says, okay, let's leave the gender out so that when there is an LGBTQ movie, sometimes straight people can be like, oh my god, like get shocked. Okay, and just as I get shocked when I see an extremely straight song or an extremely straight movie, okay, this is being overly straight. If a gay person was going to do the same kiss or the same kind of narrative, they would get bashed for it. So let's just make some kind of media where everybody can watch as a family, even if there are children around, even if they're adults, children, queer, trans. Everybody can enjoy the story and the human experience. And so I think that on the flip side of the LGBT, we can also, and it also has the I, right? The integer and the A as well, androgynous. So we can actually, the androgynous is also, I just want to say today, because I'm androgynous, the last speaker that came here, she is androgynous, as she said. So I think that ultimately the androgynous element, which sometimes is not taken into account, is something that might ultimately bind the society. Yes? Okay. Did I make a statement?
Yes.
Okay.
You just said like what you want to change, right?
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
Are we done?
Huh?
Are we done? Are we
Yeah.
wrapping
So
up?
like
Okay.
I'm just trying to open up the floor for one question or maybe two.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So yes.
But I
there's
also
one.
just wanted to quickly, I hope those are also some of the movies you make, but I also like my sexualized movies that children can't watch.
Cool.
So let's keep some of them for us.
Hello everyone. So I have noticed that most of our movies are centered around either sexuality of or in between the queer persons, or it is around the discrimination aspect that we face in our day-to-day lives in today's society. So what moves have you taken or like you think of can be done in terms of normalizing the a holistic life expression of our community members, which is not just like centered around the sensuality or our sexual orientation and these aspects, but sort of normalizing the entirety of what someone can be from our community in a very normal layman society. It's an open question to all three of you.
To understand the psychological makeup of those characters. And just as our friend said that, and I also agree that caricatures are often things like, caricatures when, they just put the characters in a box. So as I said that when we write characters, we need to be aware of their psychological makeup. Maybe their job has affected them as well. Maybe there's some other thing, maybe there's an aspiration that they have or a bigger purpose that connects them to their life or their passions, right? So all of those things, the driving forces of the characters, if they can be put into the narratives, okay, of each queer character, it will make the characters more human. And so I will just repeat one thing again, that as queer people, we need to understand mental health. So if you watch a film, if you watch a queer film, and you're not satisfied by the characterization, maybe you can do your own analysis and understand that, okay, what was missing in this character? And so I would urge that try to understand yourself in a deeper matter level. And I think it's a good exercise for everybody to when we see queer characters, we try to judge what is missing, and it is going to inform us, and then ultimately it will make better characters and narratives.
So just to add to what Rafe just said, I think the economics of media creation plays a big role in the kind of characters you
Definitely.
get. So, for example, on OTT platforms like Netflix and Amazon Prime and all of that, you'll get a lot of very beautiful characterizations of people who incidentally happen to have a sexual life that is different from the norm. So one big prime example that comes to mind is I think there's this one show called what's the one with Shefali on Hotstar? She's playing a pharmacist CEO or something. So anyway, she's playing this big pharmacy boss, and she's like calling the shots. She's like the top level leader, and then her private life is that she has a lesbian partner. And that's just incidental to the plot of the story. The plot of the story is that she's running a huge pharmacy company, and she's a conniving, actually a villainous character, but also in a very sympathetic, powerful, ruthless woman on top kind of a way. So there was so many intersections of that characterization, which I thought was beautiful, which is very difficult to do in movies, because movies, commerce of ticket selling and buying a ticket to a theater is a very big factor. Whereas an OTT is like, you don't have to worry about ticket sales and a Friday opening. You just sell it to the platform. Platform buys it from you, and it has its own audience that will find itself.
Janet?
Thank you so much. Empowerment to you all.